I promise no hand-raising questions today.
100%.
There won't be one.
That's good.
I know
I like to hear.
You didn't particularly like that one, but I do have a question about that. So 3 weeks after you raise your hand in that debate and say you can't take the pledge, you took the pledge. You signed the pledge.
Well, I didn't say I can't take it. I said I won't take it at that moment. And I have signed the pledge, and I'm honored to have signed, and I think the Republican Party has been very fair with me. I can totally make that pledge. If I'm the nominee, I will pledge I will not run as an independent. But and I am discussing it with everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of leverage.
You said you wanted leverage. So what'd you get for it?
Well, I think I have leverage. I think I have leverage in the fact that I'm leading in every poll. I think that's my leverage.
Did you get anything for doing the pledge?
Well, a lot of interest. I don't know about anything else. There was certainly a lot of interest. It was an interesting moment. We didn't know you were going to be doing that.
Donald Trump in New York today, as we look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls as this race stands. While some polls have tightened, Donald Trump still is in the lead, and a commanding lead in a lot of the polls. Meantime, he has only spent $2 million so far, $2 million of his own money. Comparison, Ben Carson has spent about $17 million. Rand Paul has spent about $8 million. And on the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton spent $43 million. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, he was very happy you put a bet on him.
Well, who would have known that the way to Donald Trump's heart, so to speak, couldn't help myself on that, is by putting money on the man. Who would have thought? Surprise. And I wonder if he's revised his review of my book as a result of that. Look, I think he's a much better candidate than he was at the beginning, much better on his feet in an interview. When he started out, he wandered into a lot of Twilight Zone places. The deportation of the 12 million, the thing with John McCain. He didn't do that. He was a lot more disciplined. I think there is some trouble with the kilo. I think people haven't looked at that. That's the
eminent domain case.
Eminent domain, where essentially a big guy, either the government or a builder or whatever, kicks a little guy out of his house, his or her house, yes, for compensation. But it's a big deal, and conservatives are rather concerned about that. So he danced around it, but I do think it's a weakness. Nonetheless, overall, I think he conducted a strong interview.
Mar.
Yeah, I think he did very, very well for himself. And I've been wrong about Trump before. I always say that. He's surpassed my expectations wildly. But Kelo is not the only thing where he crosses conservative orthodoxy. He is for covering everyone, a la Obamacare. He is for strengthening and not touching a hair on the head of Social Security or Medicare. There are a lot of things that he's done. Carried interest. There are a lot of things that he's done that the Club for Growth and other conservatives don't like. And look, he's still at the top of the polls.
But let me just say one thing. It's not just that he crosses an ideological line. It contradicts his pose as the populist. He's for the little guy against the big guy. Well, this is a clear example where the little guy gets essentially, his house gets knocked over. And that's why I think it's a problem.
There's more to that, and we'll air that tomorrow. Steve.
Well, it's nice that my fellow panelists, get a little flattery from Donald Trump, and they swoon. I didn't think it was a very good interview, and I think what he said about eminent domain will stick with him for a long time and will surprise some conservatives, although he said things like it before. He told you eminent domain is wonderful, and what I thought was very telling in that section of the interview was that he was passionate about this. He believes this with every fiber of his being. He called the people who won't give up their property, he called them holdouts. In many cases you get a holdout, he said. They're not holdouts, they're property owners. And he says the conservatives don't really understand eminent domain, and that's why they oppose it. No, in fact, most conservatives do understand eminent domain. They know that John Locke, the father of American political theory, believed that there were three natural rights: life, liberty, and property. And property is among the most important natural rights for any human being, particularly in the American system. The fact that Donald Trump thinks that developers and business, through the hand of government, can go in and seize property I find that stunning. I mean, talk about an embrace of big government. It's not that he really danced around it, Charles. I disagree with you. He didn't dance around the subject. This was a full and passionate embrace of eminent domain and the power of government to go after the little guy.
I want to play another segment. Obviously, we covered the whole gifting of the water bottles and towels to Marco Rubio, a little joke he said, and I asked him about his late-night tweets. Do you think the late-night Twitter thing, sometimes you go over the top?
Probably, but the ultimate...
It's who you are?
You know what? It's who I am. And I was going to mention Jeb, but I refuse to do it. But when you try and be somebody... When you try and be somebody that you're not, let's say I make a statement and he tries to change, can't do that. He's a good man. You can't do that. You got to be yourself. And I'm being myself. So if I do a tweet late at night, because I don't sleep that much, because I'm thinking about a lot of things now. I'm thinking about this. I can't believe I'm a politician. Can you believe this? I'm a politician. All my life I've disrespected politicians, and now I guess I have to say I'm a politician. But we're going to do some great things, and I think we're going to have victory. And I really believe that once I'm there, I think it's going to be something that will be so special.
Charles.
Well, that's the theme of his campaign. Believe me. How are you going to build a wall? Believe me, I'll build it. I'll come in under budget. It'll be a beautiful wall. And it'll come in at half of what people say. China, I'll defeat China. How are you going to do it? Believe me, I'll do it. America, I'm going to bring in the most jobs in the history of mankind. How are you going to do it? Believe me, he's running a campaign on belief. And as you said in your question, a lot of it revolves around the fact that not just he's been a success in business, but he's been a personality on television for 14 years where the persona is a guy in charge, a guy in command, and it carried over into this campaign. That's why I think his numbers are high. I'm not sure that can actually last, but I've been wrong before about him.
Has the political dynamic changed where this celebrity culture, and that was the last question I asked about Mark Leibowitz quote, that people look at him flying around in a 747 and they look at him and think, I can be that, or I can get rich, or I can...
I don't know if that's exactly what he's selling, although, you know, there's been interesting articles about Norman Vincent Peale, the power of positive thinking being one of his kind of early influences. I do think that he's so authentic and so compelling. People love to watch the Trump show, and he sounds like he believes what he's talking about, because he does. And that's part of his strength.
But the Syria answer, you know, he continues to say, hey, it's okay that Russia's there. It's okay that they're even taking out Syrian rebels that we back.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to come out with much from the Syria answer, but when you could understand what he was saying, that was what he was saying. I'd be interested to know if in 5 years there is this Iran, Syria, Russia dominance over the Middle East, if he thinks that would be in American interest. The one point I think you made in passing, actually, as you were leading up to a question, was that he refuses to do the center seat interview, which I think is really sad. I mean, this is the guy who's a political, yeah, but he's the political Superman, and all of the other Republican candidates are going to sit down here and take questions from the panel, and Donald Trump refuses to do it. I think it's weak.
Next up, the hospital bombing in Afghanistan. How many troops will President Obama leave behind?
"130 yards now."
Bill's got a very tough lie here.
Looks like we have some sort of sea monster in the water hazard here.
I believe that's a Kraken, Bruce.
It looks like he's going to go with the 9-iron. That may not be